Hey guys! In today's video I bring you an impactful and chilling story. The incredible story of Nathaniel Archer, a priest who faced his own death and returned with an urgent message about the essence of faith. During his near-death experience, in a Portland hospital, he found himself immersed in a limbo between body and soul, where menacing shadows and a divine presence confronted him, revealing the superficiality of empty rituals. What he witnessed will leave you speechless and transform your view of the true meaning of spirituality. So before we start, leave your like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Get ready for this intense and surprising journey. I, Nathaniel Archer, a priest for more than 2 decades, have always cultivated faith with devotion and ritual. But there was something in me that longed for transformation. Amid countless moments of prayers and celebrations, a silent restlessness began to settle in, subtly announcing that the divine was about to reveal itself in an unexpected way. That afternoon, as the soft evening light filtered through the church windows, I found myself in deep conversation with Reverend Samuel, an old friend and confidant. He, with a choked voice and a worried look, said, "Nathaniel, sometimes I feel that rituals have become mere performances, and our faith needs to be renewed from the inside out." These words, spoken with such sincerity, reverberated in my soul, opening a space for doubts and simultaneously for the hope of an authentic spiritual awakening. As I walked through the silent corridors of the convent, I remembered with intensity every prayer, every song, and every gesture of devotion that, over the years, had been an intrinsic part of my being. However, something told me that the true essence of the gospel was beyond the formalities that had guided my mission for so long. The feeling was of being on the edge of a journey that transcended the tangible, where faith would be renewed in its purest and most sincere form. Sitting alone in a small clergy garden, under the welcoming blanket of dusk, I felt my heart beat urgently. There was there, amidst the silence and nature, the promise of an experience that would change everything. Expectation mixed with fear, creating a whirlwind of emotions that heralded the beginning of a story that would transcend my own understanding of spirituality. In the city of Portland, Oregon, the hospital where I was located seemed suspended between the world of the living and the spiritual universe. The atmosphere was filled with a melancholy calm, as if every wall bore witness to the whispers and farewell prayers. The narrow corridors, lit by dim lamps, seemed to reflect the anguish and hope of those waiting for miracles or goodbyes. Inside my room, the presence of my loved ones was felt intensely. Family and friends, united in an emotionally charged silence, formed a prayer circle. In a corner, the trembling voice of an elderly woman rose in prayer, while a young boy, his eyes full of tears, murmured words of comfort. In the midst of this scene, I could hear the serene whisper of Vivian Sterling, who, with a delicacy that only genuine faith possesses, said, "Nathaniel, even in the darkest hours, God's light never goes out. It only becomes more intense within us." The atmosphere was a mix of traditional rituals and a palpable feeling of farewell. Every gesture, every look, revealed the urgency of the moment, as if everyone there shared the awareness that the line between life and death was blurred. The presence of Marcus Knight, the doctor in charge, added an almost scientific perspective to the scenario, with his calm demeanor and careful explanations about the delicate balance between life and death. As the illness progressed, the communion among those present turned into a silent prayer for a miracle. The tension was relieved for a moment by shy laughter and comforting touches, creating an environment where love and faith mixed amid the imminent pain. The farewell rituals, performed with fervor and reverence, highlighted the importance of that unique moment, not just the separation of a body, but the beginning of a journey that would transcend the limits of human understanding. As the pain and fatigue intensified, I realized that something extraordinary was approaching. I felt the weight of my body dissipate, as if each cell was saying goodbye to the fight for life. Amidst this whirlwind of sensations, an uneasy calm began to settle in, as if an invisible hand was gently nudging me into the unknown. I distinctly remember hearing my own breathing, slow and deep, and feeling a dissociation that made me question whether I still belonged in that fragile body. In a moment of almost lucidity, I heard an inner voice, soft and full of ancestral wisdom, that murmured, "Nathaniel, the time has come to leave behind what is earthly and embrace the infinite." These words resonated with the authority of an oracle, and for an instant despair gave way to serene acceptance. As my consciousness fluctuated, I saw my hands let go of the bed, and each heartbeat seemed to mark the rhythm of an irrevocable farewell. The presence of family and friends, although distant, echoed an almost tangible feeling, as if their prayers were bridges connecting the physical world to the spiritual. The doctor, Marcus Knight, approached, and with a look full of understanding whispered, "Nathaniel, you are embarking on a new path. Do not fear the unknown." These words, mixed with the prayers of those present, made the atmosphere even more charged with emotion and meaning. In that instant, the boundary between life and death seemed to dissolve, and I found myself suspended on a threshold where each breath was a reminder that time was slipping away. The sensation was of being stripped of all materiality, every fiber of my being preparing for something greater. And even though the fear still persisted, there was also a feeling of liberation, as if finally I was ready to face the mysteries of the beyond. As I wandered in that endless void, the initial calm gave way to a feeling of restlessness. Shadows began to form around me, appearing like veils of darkness that danced in time with my fear. At first, I thought they were just projections of what my desperate mind created, but I soon realized that they were entities with their own presence. They approached silently, and each shadow carried with it an echo of my deepest fears. I saw indistinct figures that seemed to whisper, and their murmurs merged into an unsettling chorus as if repeating, "You failed, Nathaniel." In the midst of this whirlwind, a deep and distant voice echoed, carrying with it the feeling that the past regrets and doubts were materializing before me. I tried to scream, but my voice was lost in the void. Instead, I felt the weight of every unspoken word, every remorse, every ritual that at times seemed empty and distant. In an instant, a particularly imposing shadow, with contours that resembled a well-known figure, slowly approached and said, with an icy and ironic tone, "Nathaniel, the faith you professed for so long was nothing more than a veil to hide your true essence." His words broke my spirit, and the fear turned into an almost physical anguish. Each shadow seemed to represent not only my fears, but also the errors and failures of the rituals that until then I had believed were the expression of true devotion. In the midst of this confrontation with one's own self, loneliness intensified, and the feeling of being lost in an abyss of darkness seemed irreversible. With every second, the shadows multiplied and the whispers turned into silent screams, making me feel like I was being judged for a truth I had never dared to face. Terror invaded my being, and for a brief moment everything seemed to come down to the internal struggle between hope and despair, between the faith that I once longed for and the harsh reality that now presented itself before me. At the height of my panic, when despair seemed to consume every fiber of my being, I felt an overwhelming and inexplicable force that broke the deafening silence of the void. It was as if a whirlpool of energy formed around me, surrounding me in a light that was both warming and dazzling. As the menacing shadows gathered in a last-ditch effort to keep me trapped in the anguished darkness, something pulled me upwards, in a swift and unexpected movement that seemed to defy all the laws of existence. I vividly remember the moment my legs stopped responding to gravity, and my spirit, for a brief moment, was suspended in a limbo where time dissolved. In the midst of this whirlwind of sensations, I heard the calm and comforting voice of Marcus Knight, the doctor, who, even far away, seemed to be able to overcome the barrier between body and spirit. "Nathaniel, trust in this strength that lifts you. You are being called to something beyond what you can imagine," he whispered, his words mingling with the sound of an almost palpable energy. As this mysterious force led me away from the abyss, I was able to glimpse, for the first time, a grandiose landscape. It was as if the entire earth opened up before my eyes, revealing a breathtaking beauty, but also showing the scars of a spiritual corruption that I had never fully realized. Every detail of that expanded vision carried a deep symbolism. The sparkling lights of the cities contrasted with shadows that hovered over once sacred temples, denouncing the decadence of rituals that were lost in superficiality. In this leap between dimensions, I felt my being expand and contract, as if I were being reshaped by a divine energy. The movement was chaotic, but at the same time, there was an inexplicable harmony in the way the force led me. For an instant, the feeling of fear mixed with overwhelming hope, giving way to the idea that this rescue was not just an escape, but the harbinger of a profound transformation. The light surrounding me gradually calmed down, and in the regained silence of the space between life and death, an imposing figure emerged before me. His eyes, as deep as cosmic abysses, stared into mine with an intensity that seemed to reveal the most secret corners of my soul. Gabriel Foster, a divine manifestation, raised his voice with the firmness of 1,000 ancient prayers. "Nathaniel, why did you indulge in rituals that only mask the essence of faith?" His words resonated like silent thunder, bringing to the surface all the hypocrisy and superficiality I had been carrying without realizing it. As his presence emanated a resolute calm, I felt his every word penetrate the barriers of my being, laying bare my doubts and fears. He continued with a tone that mixed compassion and severity. "True faith is born from sincere surrender, not from formalities that you repeated as if they were set in stone. Where is your devotion, Nathaniel, when gestures have become just the echo of an empty tradition?" In a whirlwind of emotions, I tried to articulate a response, but words failed me. The surrounding environment seemed to vibrate with the force of that confrontation, every inch of that space revealing the urgency of a truth that I was reluctant to face. I always believed that rituals were the path to the divine, I managed to mutter, my voice choked with emotion and fear of revelation. Gabriel Foster inclined his head and his expression softened for a brief moment, revealing an ancient sadness. "Authentic faith does not hide behind masks, Nathaniel. It manifests itself in vulnerability, in the courage to open up to the divine without reservation. Look inside yourself and discover the love that was given to you. Abandon the shadows of rituals and allow the light of truth to guide each action." As you His words reverberated in the ethereal space. A transformation began to occur within me. Every question, every doubt dissolved, giving way to a clarity I had never experienced. The divine figure remained like a beacon, illuminating the path to a renewed faith devoid of formalism. Gabriel Foster's presence echoed in every fiber of my being, and after the divine confrontation, I felt something tear apart and rebuild itself internally. In the aftermath of that transcendent experience, I realized that my beliefs had been transformed. The shackles of empty rituals fell away, giving way to a clarity I had never experienced. In a silence that spoke louder than any prayer, I relived moments of my journey, the successes, the stumbles, and above all, the times I hid behind formalisms to avoid facing my own failures. As I rested in this new state, I visualized scenes from my life, the prayers repeated with precision, the rituals I performed with such mechanical devotion, and now, the moments when the true calling of the divine invited me to delve into the essence of love and vulnerability. With each memory, a different emotion manifested itself, not always soft, but essential for the reconstruction of a faith that needed to be pure and sincere. I felt an irresistible impulse to embrace this transformation. Amid silent tears and shy smiles, I began to understand that being reborn is not about forgetting the past but learning from it, allowing each mistake to become a step towards a more authentic existence. In an intimate dialogue with my own soul, I asked, could it be that by abandoning the comfort of rituals I can finally achieve true communion with the divine? The answer came not in words but in a deep sense of acceptance and light, as if a new halo illuminated my thoughts. In this state of rebirth, I felt that every sigh, every heartbeat, was an invitation to live fully, without masks or artifices. The intensity of the experience pushed me to recognize that faith, to be genuine, must be lived with courage and authenticity. And it was at that moment that I promised myself to dedicate my life to rescuing and propagating this new form of spirituality. A faith that, instead of relying on formalisms, is based on the complete surrender of the heart. Back at my bedside, while tears and murmurs of prayers filled the atmosphere, a deep concern took over me as I observed the disparity between the grand temples and the true devotion of small groups of believers. I saw in every rehearsed gesture and in every forced look the mark of a faith that was reduced to mechanical and empty rituals, without the sincerity that should overflow from the heart. During a brief interval of silence as family and friends offered repetitive prayers, I heard Vivian Sterling, in a voice full of melancholy, murmur, "Nathaniel, sometimes I feel that traditions have become prisons that prevent us from feeling the divine fully." These words echoed in me and awakened an uneasiness that could no longer be ignored. In a frank conversation with Reverend Samuel shortly after my recovery, I asked in all honesty, "Have we become mere actors in a theater of rituals where the divine touch is replaced by rehearsed formalities?" His response, filled with hesitation, only confirmed what my spirit had already sensed. The religious leaders, stuck in their old ways, had lost connection with the true essence of the gospel. The contrast between the large temples full of pomp and spectacle and the small groups of believers where devotion manifested itself in a pure and spontaneous way was stark. As I reflected on these realities, pain and anger mixed into an emotional turmoil that drove me towards a new mission. Every face, every prayer, and every silence reminded me of the urgency of recovering genuine faith. The criticism was not just a denunciation of institutions that had become corrupt, but a passionate call for us to abandon empty rituals and rediscover the true meaning of communion with the divine. Thus, I realized that the transformation of faith depended above all on the courage to recognize our own weaknesses and the determination to rebuild an authentic spirituality based on sincere love and the vulnerability of the heart. If you liked this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment on your impressions, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate the notification bell to watch each new video and help us spread this message to a greater number of people. Until next time.